have a pretty big composting effort here. Why don't you explain a little bit about the process you guys go through?
Sure. Well, we use a lot of different materials from the community. So we take leaves from the trees as they fall, and then we take the grass that's cut from the green spaces, and then we combine that with, we get coffee grounds from the coffee shop here, any of their vegetable scraps from prep, any scraps from prep at the farm grill, and then anything that we have left over, and then we mix a ratio of carbon and nitrogen based products and basically make a pile, and then from there we basically turn it each week to another pile so that we can get that nice aeration and mixture and keep things real vibrant, you know, as it starts to break down. I mean, we monitor temperatures of the piles themselves, and if they start to get too hot, we'll add a little moisture by watering them down.
Now, if somebody wanted to do composting in their own backyard, what would you recommend for them?
You know, if we're going to break it down in the most simple way, you know, compost, you can get a pretty good product by just mixing green materials and brown materials. So you can start with a 50-50 green to brown, and then just kind of monitor if it starts to smell, you know, a little bit too much, then you need a little bit more of the brown materials to kind of dry it out.
What are good green materials and good brown materials?
You know, there's a lot of overlap between the two. So freshly cut grass would be a green material. You know, as it dries out, it becomes a brown material. And same thing with leaves. You know, freshly trimmed trees and those leaves can be a green material. If it's dried out and lost its moisture content, then it's more of a brown material.
Kitchen scraps?
Kitchen scraps would be green.
And how long would people expect to have to wait before they actually have compost if they follow that?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables. You're gonna kind of keep watching it. If you can use a thermometer, they make compost thermometers, but even some kitchen thermometers you can, you know, put into the pile and monitor. So you want that temperature to be, you know, basically the ambient air temperature. So if we're in the low 100s, you want to see at least stabilized to that temperature range for, you know, a good couple of weeks to make sure that it's fully cured before you add it to your garden.
Well, Eric, we really appreciate you having us out here today to Agritopia. We learned an awful lot, especially about compost. And speaking about compost, there's a couple of ASU students that are using kind of a morning pick-me-up to add to the plants around their campus. Vincente Solis and Rigoberto Polanco started the Grounds for Grounds program at Arizona State University.
Well, the Grounds for Grounds program came about actually because of the economy. You know, about a few years ago when the economy crashed, ASU had kind of budget cuts, so we had to find other means to fertilize our grass and our flowers. So we talked to Starbucks, and they were all for it, and that's pretty much the way it initially started, was trying to find a cheaper, or actually free form of fertilizer for our flowers. The coffee grounds came to mind because I do it at my house. You know, every time I go to Starbucks, I always ask him, it's like, do you have some coffee grounds? And they're pretty free. They just give you whatever they have, because they're going to throw it away anyway. So that's the way it started there. It's like I do it at home, so I was like, why can't we do it over here on a mass scale?
It serves a purpose. One, it will amend the soil. It will give nutrients for the plants, and also we're actually reducing the waste on campus as well.
These two ASU students and grounds workers say coffee is much better than synthetic fertilizers because it's chemical free.
The coffee grounds is a food source for the microactivity in the soil, and what it does is the microactivity consumes the coffee grounds, and in turn they release nitrogen that feeds the plant life. So that's what makes it a good fertilizer.
The coffee is collected twice a week from the cafes on campus, and then they make their own blend.
We have to lay it out on a sunny surface to let it dry out, because it's very wet when we receive the coffee grounds. Once it's dry for our compost mix, we actually take it into the field and we actually spread it around in our flower beds, our lawns, anywhere that necessarily needs the nutrients or the soil amendments.
The plants have flourished since they started using the coffee grounds.
We do see pretty good results in the flower beds. I mean, the flowers are always colorful and they're growing, and there's a lot of moisture built up in the flower, which is what we want, especially being in the desert and it's really, really hot here. And on the grass, the areas we have used it in, we do see green, lush lawns and extended growth and everything along those lines.
This program saves about $10,000 a year and helps ASU reach its goal of becoming a zero-waste campus.
We divert about 1,200 to 1,500 pounds of coffee grounds every month from the landfills.
The Grounds for Grounds program has won many awards, but it's really the environment that wins. We're back here with Rebecca at Farmyard. Now, Rebecca, we've already told people how easy it is for them to have a garden if they hire you to do it. But what about for those viewers at home that think they have a green thumb and they want to try it themselves? What should they be doing now to get ready for their fall garden?
Right now is a great time to prep your garden soil. Add fresh compost for the season, possibly do a soil test to see where your soil nutrients are. All those spring and summer crops, they zap a lot of nutrients for those big tomato plants and big squash that are growing. And so to boost the soil up with maybe a little extra nitrogen, which is found in blood meal from an organic perspective, is a great thing for the fall garden.
So in a time frame moment, when can they be doing their fall garden?
We start planting client gardens right around October 7th is kind of the earliest. It's been nice this September, but it can happen at any time where it gets back up to 105, 110 pretty easily. So we feel that October 7th is kind of the earliest that we would plant.
So what should people expect to plant in the fall in terms of vegetables?
A lot of root crops go in now. Best season for carrots, radishes, turnips, parsnips, all of your cooking greens, so Swiss chard, kale, spinach, and then all of your lettuces, and then everybody's favorite, broccoli and cauliflower.
What about beets?
Oh, and beets too, another root crop. Thank you, Pete.
Now, what's the latest in the fall anybody should try to plant?
We kind of, we plant 12 months out of the year in our own farms, but usually for clients we recommend kind of stopping around the middle of December, just because the season's going to change again February and March for tomatoes and all the spring crops, so that at least gives them about a 2.5, 3 month window to get some lettuces and some radishes and the quicker crops growing.
Now, even though it's winter, what about watering requirements?
Watering requirements, we use drip irrigation. That's our favorite. It doesn't seem to compact the soil like the flood does. And we do twice a day, and depending on water pressure, usually anywhere between 3 minutes, which is if you have fantastic water pressure, to 6 minutes if your water pressure is a little bit less.
Well, Rebecca, we really appreciate you having us come out and take a look today. You've got a really wonderful, earth-friendly, sustainable business practice going on here.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you very much.
Up next, another sweet treat offered at Agritopia.